One. All right. Welcome back. Back on this Thursday night. It will be Friday when this pops up on y'all's feed. So, man, Franklin, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Almost a weekend. How are you?
Yeah, same. Almost a weekend. I thought I was gonna be able to. I mean, somewhat relax a bit, but clearly not. Oh my God. We heading into this, we were like, oh, let's just start here. We'll start with the Sixers Hawks. Let's get straight into this. So we recorded after game four where we recorded after game four where the Hawks came back. The Sixers blew it. You said you were confused. So was I. I guess are we more confused, or do we kind of understand what's going on here? I'm just gonna let you do your spiel, man.
Am I, honestly, am I confused? I don't know if I am anymore. I just feel like I think if there's one word to really sum up the last few minutes of the fourth quarter for the Sixers yesterday, which was Wednesday night. I'd say something close to like pathetic, basically. Like to blow. They had, I think, They at one point they had a 25-point lead. I think by the time in the fourth quarter they had around like 14, 15-point lead, and in a matter of 2 minutes, the Hawks came back. The Hawks, were up, and then Joel Embiid, and you can't blame him for everything because he played relatively well. Like, first half, third quarter, he played okay. But fourth quarter wise, he wasn't able to close this game. And, that was especially evident. Everyone saw when he missed those two free throws at the end, sank your heart. But I mean, I know you have another player in mind in particular that you have something to say about for sure. I'll let you talk about him.
So this sucks because I'm from Louisiana. He was great. I mean, sure, LSU didn't do that well with him, but he was nice at LSU. I saw him, saw him play. It's Ben Simmons. We got to talk about it. So games 2 and 3, they finally were just like, let's put Ben Simmons on Trae Young and let's, kind of hinder Trae Young, and it worked. And they did it. I mean, I think for the most part, it was a great job on Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was doing defensively, and Ben Simmons is great defensively. I mean, I think, no offense to Rudy Gobert, I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year, just because he can guard all 5 positions, and I think he was the anchor of the way that defense was. Why the Sixers were doing so great. It was defense, and sure, the addition of Seth Curry helped with shooting and Joel Embiid being a beast in the paint, but like their whole ethos is defense, and I think Ben Simmons was the anchor of that. But when your offense is this bad, had 0 field goal. So these are all stats that Ryan Russillo kind of provided in his pod, but I mean, you can find them anywhere too. He had 0 field goal attempts in the past 2 fourth quarters, and in games 4 and 5, the games that they've blown.
Holy
and
crap.
I think here's the thing: as good as you are defensively, if you're a point guard, you have to have some modicum of offense. Well, as in, like, fine, you can't shoot, that's okay. You don't have to shoot. I mean, it's not necessarily okay, but if you don't shoot threes or shoot mid-rangers and you're just an ultimate god at being a driver, that's fine. But clearly he's afraid to do that now because he's going to get fouled. And over the past 3 years, his free throw percentage has gone down.
Yep.
Like, how does that happen? He's at like 33% in the it's crazy. How are you at a third? You make a third of your field goals. I mean, free throws. That's like Shaq level. And we can excuse, like, the only player that's worse is Ben Wallace. And sure, you guys say, oh, Ben Wallace is great defensively, but also Ben Wallace was not a point guard. Like, point guards should be able to make some free throws. I'm sorry. And for what I've heard about how Ben Simmons is such a perfectionist And that's why he doesn't, at some point, he's not going to try and attempt to get a better jump shot because he has to be perfect at it if he tries to endeavor on that. He's become absolutely a beast on defense. Sure, fine. But free throws are it's the basic thing. It's the easiest. I mean, it's easier said than done. We're not NBA players. We're not even we haven't really played basketball at any organizational level, as far as in college and stuff like that, or even well enough in high school. Point is though, free throws are something you can train to do, right? It's the easiest, it's the most efficient shot. It's the easiest thing you can make. I mean, I'm a college basketball fan. I hear Jay Bilas say this every single game he commentates. It's like, you need to get your free throws down, because that's the easiest shot to make.
Right.
If you're that bad offensively, so what this allows then is that the Sixers offense is just stunted completely. And it makes sense. So if you don't have to guard Ben Simmons out, you can just crowd the paint. Now Joel Embiid's not going to be able, he's going to be just clobbered in the
Absolutely.
paint. And then you're thinking Seth Curry and Harris could step up from the wings. But the problem is then that guy that's helping off of Ben Simmons, that's not really guarding him, is then just gonna try and switch around. So it's 5 guarding 4. It's basically, when you're on offense, it's 4 on 5 when the Sixers are on offense. And his assist might be great. He might be a great passer, might have excellent basketball IQ, but if you can't have a modicum of a shot, there's nothing. And that's what's happened in these games, is that at some point, poor Joel Embiid, we know his injury problems. He gets slowed down in the second half. He gets exhausting. It's tiring from carrying the load. And he's kind of, the stats also bear this out. He's done terribly in these second halves in these past 2 games. Just, bricking shots. I don't know the exact field goal percentages or the numbers, but I can tell you it's quite bad. It was 25% or so from game 4, and it was quite bad in game 5. Right. And then so he's getting kind of tired. And so while he's getting tired, you can't just ask him to just bear the load on the off. And then it ends up being Seth Curry show. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is the wrong Curry. This is the wrong Curry you're putting the burden on. No offense to Seth, but your brother's better. We know this. You probably know this too. Anyways, but so you come to a situation where on offense, it just looks terrible. And we talked about Atlanta is deceptively good. Defensively, it's because Nate McMillan, how he's coached his team. And I guess you just get to the point where Trae Young has just enough energy left over that he can just pass wherever the hell he wants to on offense. And they're getting shots and he's finding ways to, get to the lane, which is crazy. Cause I guess no matter how, good Ben Simmons is defensively, or Tybal and all of these guys, you got 3 all NBA defensive, teamers. No matter how good that is, at some point you got Ben Simmons guy gets some offense to counter rages like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I'm just gonna, this is something that we can also talk about later on about how Atlanta did well, but I think I'm going to forget about this point if I keep it down later. So I'm just saying one thing that I think Atlanta played really well, even when they had such a deficit, is that Atlanta at this point really is playing on house money in terms of just really saying stuff. Yes, they have a talented roster. Yes, they have a young roster. Yes, they played much better since Nate McMillan was hired as coach. However, their expectations and, looking at you and our expectations in terms of them playing the Knicks, them playing the Sixers. We were saying Knicks in 5. We were saying Sixers sweep. literally they're playing on house money. They have nothing to lose. And so they've been playing with that mentality. They've been like grinding it out. And that's big credit to them in terms of just like doing really well there. And and I feel like Philadelphia has the exact opposite in terms of having all the pressure, saying that, this is a team that you're supposed to absolutely dominate. But in terms of that, they are clearly not dominating. And then one more point about Ben Simmons. I'm going to call him out. I'm just going to say right now, I don't think the guy, I don't think the guy has that level of fire, that passion that I thought and a lot of the league thought he had, because we thought he was going to be like a Magic Johnson or a LeBron. Granted, LeBron was a much better shooter than him coming to the league, but someone that doesn't have a really refined skill set. He doesn't really have any kind of skill set shooting wise, but someone that can, grind and really put into work in the NBA to try to become a better shooter, or at least a competent free throw, shooter. That hasn't materialized, just my stats about him, like being in the league this long now. How long has it been? Like 6 years, right? 6 or 7, 5 or 6 years, something like that, I believe. I believe it's around there.
It was
now.
it. So what was the year? So it was a rookie. He was rookie of the year. It was him and Donovan Mitchell that year when they got
Okay,
drafted.
yeah, he's been in the league 5
Was
years.
that so that was the year before? Yeah, 5 years. It's been 5 years.
5 years. 5 years. I believe in the NBA game, he's attempted 2 threes, if I'm correct. 5 years in the league. So yeah, I'll say that much. And then just finally, you could say like big men don't have good free throw shooting. In this day and age, even the big men are shooting quite well from the line, and just shooting wise in general. It's just that it's an essential skill that you need now. And like for him to just not have shooting whatsoever, one is just reflects on basically at the core what he actually wants to gain from his career here in the NBA. And I think he's being way too complacent, and he obviously is plateauing, if not dipping, in terms of stats and performance wise on the court.
I have some empathy for the Sixers, and in the sense that it sucks that this is all happening, and it's not like, I mean, we don't know really Ben Simmons' character, from us two guys who don't really know him, but when you, let's say, look at Joel Embiid's like just face when he just missed those 2 free throws, and then how much we both predicted, for different reasons, we both predicted they would win it all, and their offense was competent and pretty good in the regular season, and we thought this could hold up, and it feels like Ben Simmons was just playing better in the regular season. Even defensively, defensively, I thought he was also playing a little bit better. This
Sure.
is something else. I guess it's just the pressure. It's young guys. It's just a lot. It's like you pointed out. They're not playing with house money. It's like the exact opposite. They got to bring the money to the house. I don't know really however that metaphor works, but
no, that works.
so,
There you go.
so they got a huge amount of pressure on them, and from people like us, and Philadelphia, that sports market, we know how brutal it is sometimes.
By the way, real quick, I applaud the Philly fans booing the Sixers off the court last game. They absolutely deserve to be booed off the court. That was pathetic. Yeah. So,
jeez,
good for you. One time I'll say that.
Sure. Okay. I get. I can understand, because from a Sixers fan standpoint, like, this is the process. Like, this is the year. I'm sorry, but this is the year. Like, if this is the process, right? This is all of that tanking, all the Sam Hinkie year. It led up to this year. This is the highest they're gonna get. KD, like, we'll talk about the Nets and Bucks later, but that ain't looking good. This is the wide open shot before the Nets the next year, 2 years, so on, can get can gel and get better, right. or a new power. Like, let's say this wishful think. Let's say the Celtics get better or something like that. But this is, I feel like this is it, and it just sucks. There's just so much boiling over. Like all the Doc Rivers blowing leads is coming back. all that Joel Embiid is not a great, what is it, great playoff player coming back. It's all of this. But for all of that, though, not to make this a Ben Simmons roast podcast, maybe this is becoming that, but this is odd. So there's a difference between being a bad shooter and being, I guess, complacent and like doing really well defensively, and having your shooting go down every year. It gets gotten worse every year.
That's terrible. Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, if it should get better. And I think that's a key point. Like, it should definitely be getting better. Freaking Lonzo. Let's talk about Lonzo, great assist guy, great defensive guy, although not to the same caliber as Ben Simmons, of course, but great passer. He was a good shooter in college, but that's because the difference is in the 3-point line. He got better. He's gotten better. He's improved his shot dramatically.
Yes.
And it's like, and Lonzo has nothing really. It's no offense to Lonzo. He's just being, he was like passed around. He's not really playing for too much. It's not like, no offense to the Pelicans, it's not like they're one of the contenders that everyone's talking about, these Pelicans. He's doing it because he just wants to get better. And this puts more impetus. Ben Simmons should have more impetus to get better, because so much expectation on the Sixers, so much of the fan base, all of this, and you can get better defensively, but it's not. How do you regress in free throw shooting? How do you regress in shooting percentage? It sucks. I don't know. I like the guy. I like the guy and how he plays. I like defense, and I think it's just a wild card in him at LSU. He was a good shooter. No, I shouldn't say good shooter. Pause. But he was like a decent scorer in LSU. Like, he was solid points, and it's just wild. A part of me, I mean, anything can happen. I mean,
yeah.
Game 6 is tomorrow. Like, who knows what can happen? Maybe fire's lit up under their ass, and then like Tobias Harris goes ham or something. Like, he shows up finally, and like, also, yeah, where's Tobias Harris? Actually, that's a good question. Where's Tobias Harris? Like, I get it. Seth Curry's supposed to, he's good. He's a good 3-point shooter and but that's the Tobias Harris supposed to be that big man that can also shoot threes and be that guy. Right. Especially if the paint is getting clogged with Ben Simmons.
Remember, Sixers fans, you guys chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. Just saying. I'm just saying right now. But
also, Jimmy Butler kind of wanted to leave. So
yeah, but I mean, if you offer Jimmy like a big max contract, he might have, thought twice, but
Well, the thing is, Jimmy Butler's also not the best like shooter, as far as like, you know what I'm saying? Because they already have two defensive guys that are like good slashers. I guess Simmons, I don't know. Simmons needs to get some mid range. At least Jimmy Butler has a mid range. I'll say that. Simmons guy. Point is, though, I don't think Simmons and Embiid, to get to the point before about anything can happen, sure. But with the trend right now, it just looks like the Sixers are just going down like crazy. The Sixers they're saying everything is fine. Doc Rivers, might be saying everything is fine, and and stuff like that in his mind, just to calm himself down. But this is what's happened. Everything's burning in that that organization right now. So with that in mind, I don't think Embiid and Ben Simmons work together. I think Ben Simmons could work on a team that has a bunch of shooters, including the center, that can space out and shoot, and then that completely opens the lanes for Ben Simmons to be a slasher if he's not going to improve. But I mean, Embiid is a decent scorer, but of course he's a post man first and foremost. But if you have like a switchable, very like a small ball lineup that has centers that can shoot threes and stuff like that, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a team.
I'm almost thinking Minnesota, but
yeah, because Karl Anthony Towns, right? But sure. that's it. That's the only. That's I guess he's got to trade because
You could, yeah, because I was thinking like, a center that can shoot threes. Yeah, Denver can, but why do you want Jokic ever to
no.
get, exactly. So that wouldn't happen. But yeah, I guess Minnesota, that's not a bad idea. But
Because I don't, I just don't think this is working out. And
I,
however good he is defensively, I mean that's what you have Tybal for. Like you can get Tybal. I mean Danny Green. Like this whole team is good defensively. At some point, you can't have a player that bad on offense. Like he's terrible on offense.
that's why they wanted
It's
James Harden so bad. That's why. So
yeah. And I mean, what's that dude's name? Who's the former Rockets GM that's on the Sixers?
Daryl Morey.
That. Thank you. Jeez, I'm having brain farts. Yeah, Daryl Morey. It seems when he builds teams, he knows that it should be built around like a big three. He doesn't really, unless it's unless it's LeBron and AD or so, like Shaq and Kobe, it should be a big three. Right. You should have three good players. And I think if you have to get Harden, you'd have to give up Ben Simmons. And I guess he doesn't have that much.
I don't know. I think that might have been worth it, honestly. I'm looking now. I mean, come on. I mean, Harden hasn't been that bad of a defensive liability as I thought
he's not. So, he's not. He's
honestly, he would have fit in so well with the Sixers. I think it's just that Houston didn't want to deal with Daryl Morey, which is fair, but
that might be it. Yeah. But yeah, we've kind of exhausted our initial rant on that. It's just or at least my initial rant.
Yeah.
I also, how much should Doc Rivers be to blame for this too?
Doc to blame for it's kind of hard to say. I feel like the only problem with Doc, and I think this is true to some extent. It's just that he kind of like he's a guy that maybe doesn't make as much adjustments as you'd like a coach to make, like between halves or even between games. You have like a lot of coaches, like we'll talk later, but guys like Ty Lue or Rick Carlisle, who was formerly Dallas Mavericks coach. Those guys like schemed every game. They Ty Lue's been throwing like rotations out every single game, every half. Like they've been going off, like in terms of he's just making like new schemes all the time. Doc's kind of been like, this is tried and true. We're gonna stay here. We're just gonna ride this into the ground if we need to. And right now it is a sinking ship. I'm just selling it right now. So it is something that you could say it's blame. I wouldn't blame him that much. I feel like the players have much more to blame on that part, but there is some parts of blame. Sure.
Because I mean, I feel like he's the Sixers were really good in the regular season, and it's a big improvement from you take that improvement from Brown, definitely, and I would think. And I mean, he got to this point. I think he instilled some confidence in like Simmons' defense, kind of sticking up for him, and like I think he's done well as far as we don't know too much, but I think he's done well from galvanizing the team standpoint. It's just crazy how this keeps happening to him and in these playoffs. And I put Doc Rivers more than Budenholzer, but it feels like Budenholzer with the title at this point. The way we think, it just sucks. That could be what you just look at on paper. It's like, well, this guy's just like Budenholzer, but with a title. And I don't think that's it. I think he's better than that comparison. It's just it just sucks that this is happening to him again. It's crazy how many times these World Series has happened, and it becomes a talking point to where we're even bringing it up.
Right.
So yeah, it's rough for sure. Rough. It's just man, you got Doc, you got Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. Like I just, this feels it feels like there's so much pressure, and there's no for as good, you might not like him, for as good as Danny Green is, as a leader, as a guy that could, he's a champion. He is a champion many times. So
All right. Yeah, that's fair.
he is. He's stepped up. Like Danny Green is give some respect on Danny Green.
This
All right.
season, yes. Last season, I will not give him an ounce of credit in the playoffs. That guy was terrible. But this season, yes, I will give him credit.
All right, but you got to admit, like with the Raptors, even with the Spurs, to keep him
Sure.
in that long, it's like
Yeah.
there's something to it. But Danny Green ain't no. I'm not even talking from a skills point. I'm talking about he ain't no Chris Paul. He ain't no LeBron or that guy that could really galvanize and say like I've been here in sports. Let's say Tom Brady, right? There's this story how with the Bucks, I think the Bucks they won the NFC Championship game, and these the players are crying like of tears of joy in the locker room, like they're making it to the Super Bowl. And then Tom Brady is like, "What do you mean? Like, why are you crying? Like, we got a game. Let's go. We can celebrate a bit, but like, let's go. Like, you don't have to cry. Like, let's move on." So what I guess they need a player like that instills that much confidence, because right now it looks like this. It looks like so much pressure. I don't know how much confidence these guys have.
Damn. I mean, if you really say that, I mean, like Kyle Lowry would be a perfect guy.
Yeah,
Went to Villanova, like a dog, absolute like killer. Like he would instantly change culture there.
but it's not just changing. It's like instilling that like it's okay. Like we get confidence. Like you can spring back. Like there's some players that if you have them, it's like we've been in this situation. We've been down. We can do this. Like there's again LeBron or something like that. Like these guys haven't had too much playoff like adversity where they've actually been able to come back, right? I mean, of course, I think Ben Simmons was crying after like that Kawhi double rim shot in Game 7.
That was Embiid, but
wait, who did I say?
It was you said Ben Simmons, but it was Embiid.
Oh, I meant Embiid.
Yeah, that's all good. All good.
My bad. Running on fumes here for more fire puns, but I think they just need someone to instill that confidence, and I think it sucks that with Doc Rivers, you might be thinking in the back of your head, he's blown so many leads before, even though it might not be his fault per se, partially it's fault. I think there has to be some reason.
There has to be some fault. Yeah.
They keep blowing these leads, but I don't think it's as much of a fault as like some people want to prescribe on him. So yeah, that's the end of my Doc Rivers talk. I just think they're going to fold under pressure. I'm calling it now. And it looks like throughout this playoffs, I'm calling it now takes have been wrong consistently. So maybe this will give the spark the Sixers need and Sixers fan need.
It's like you and Charles Barkley's guarantees. Those guarantees are so good, but yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm thinking of, one last thing for this series is, do you think Trae Young at this point, right? The guy's now led Hawks past. I mean, basically, he's going to lead them probably. Things don't mess up to Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. Is he underrated at this point? Is he considered an underrated player?
No, because at this point, I think he'll be properly rated, because the way the fact that we're having these discussions right now means he's being properly rated.
Okay.
The fact that people are like, oh, well, people are saying Trae Young is underrated. Trae Young is underrated. If everyone's saying Trae Young is underrated, then he's rated, because then everyone believes. If everyone believes he's underrated, that means the rating has clearly shifted up. You know what I'm saying? Trying to do some finagling here. So I think he's.
Yeah. I think the only thing is, I think maybe Trae Young in terms of number one, we always compare him to Luka. So it's like, there's always that comparison. But I guess like when I talk about rating, it also means like, when people say like, if you had to start a team today, who would be your franchise cornerstone? And Luka would usually be in probably the top 5, in some cases top 3 players that you'd start a franchise today with. How high would Trae be after this playoff run, would you say? Because he used to be just like, okay, he's a shooter, he's a good player, but where is he going to be? But now it's like, would he be in the top 10? Would he
I
be
would
in
think,
there?
yeah. I mean, let's see these young guys. Uh, so I'm just gonna try to list them out. Youngish guys. Do you want to start?
Okay.
I'm excluding like LeBron. Anyone over 30, I'm excluding. So I'm
Okay.
excluding Steph and all that, right?
Sure.
So sure, Luca.
Luca.
Then you got Zion. You got
Zion.
Tatum.
Tatum. Giannis.
Uh, Giannis. Jokic. Uh,
Jokic.
Jokic is before a lot of these guys. I might say actually Embiid is actually relatively old. It's kind of deceiving. He's quite old.
Is he quite old? Okay.
This is a little bit old, but maybe
Okay.
Embiid.
I'd say Karl Anthony Towns.
I see. So you put Corey down. I put Trae Young over Karl Anthony Towns.
You would? Okay.
I think that's the point. I think it's the jaw. It's the jaw. Trae is. I think I put Trae over jaw too. I put Trae
Wow.
over jaw.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns just doesn't have the winner's mentality. He doesn't have the how Jimmy Butler criticized that team, saying that they don't have any passion towards winning. That might be a problem, but pure talent wise, Karl Anthony Towns is insane. So
I agree, pure talent wise, but the point you made, like the reason why Jimmy Butler didn't like him is the same reason I'm putting Trae over him.
that's fair.
Like,
How about Bam Adebayo, someone like that?
Bam Adebayo. I put Bam above. I put Bam above Cat, but below Trae.
Okay.
Maybe above
Okay.
Ja.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not that bad. Okay.
So I put him in. I guess he is top 10. I'd say he's top 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say he's top 10 of like this young, the young generation or whatnot. You want to say?
Yeah. Okay.
The next wave. I think so. I mean, this series clearly shown it, but he has. I mean, there's a James Harden quality to him. There's a toughness. There's the amount of passing that he's doing. It's not like, man, we keep crapping on Westbrook. It's not like these Westbrook mini assists where like he gets to the paint and then just like dumps it off slightly. No, like Trae Young is doing like genuine assists. He's like a genuine the scoring and the assists numbers are ridiculous. Even the regular, like before the playoffs really shone a light on it, but the regular season, if you're paying attention, like he was up there in assists. Like he's been that guy, and I think it's good to build a team around, like, and if he can be coached up the way McMillan has on defense, I mean, he won't be great. He won't be that good of a two-way player, but if he's decent enough defensively, you'll take it. He'll take the defensive liability for the amount of offensive production. Yeah, sure.
Right.
I put him top 10.
All right.
So
all right.
I think most people would too after this series.
Yeah.
Would you?
I think after this series, probably. Like I guess like only people like slightly older players like Joel Embiid, maybe like Anthony Davis. He's like 28, but top 10, yeah, probably. I think Trae has the qualities to be a top 10 player. I think like you try like say like, oh man, he's maybe like he's not tall enough, he's not big enough, to be a reliable player. But then again, you've seen what happened in Golden State. You've seen what happened in Portland. Those guys are called undersized, little guys, but they've been massively successful. So it's not like you can't do that. And I think Trae's, just another one of those guys that you can definitely build around.
And there's something, for as much as we've kind of crapped on the Sixers, and all of that. I mean, there's something to be said about having to actually be the other team to complete that comeback. Because as much as the Sixers screwed it up, not a lot of teams would have been able to come back. And there's something to be said about his conviction that his will his team, it feels like. And sure, the pieces around him are great, but they're not like, he doesn't have a second superstar next to him. It's not like, let's say KD and Kyrie or KD and Harden, or let's say Paul George and Kawhi, these duos, right? It's not like he has that. He's been able to do this with quality offensive weapons that have been coached up to be better defensively.
All right. One last player who would you put over who? Donovan Mitchell. That's a pretty good one because people always forget about Donovan Mitchell, but
Yeah,
honestly, I feel like okay, so I feel like so the thing going for Donovan Mitchell is he has a killer mentality, but I don't think Trae lacks that after I'm seeing like what he's been doing this season, this playoff run. So if he doesn't lack that, I'd probably put Trae slightly over because I think Trae's a better shooter. But I mean, it's very close. That's the line for me
I
right there.
I,
That
I
would be
think I think I put Mitchell above him. I think I
okay,
put Mitchell
okay,
above him
okay,
slightly.
okay.
I just those first two games, my God, before he kind of re-injured that ankle, those first two games were something to behold. And his passing is good. I didn't realize his passing is better than I thought it was. Like
Yeah,
I saw glimpses of regular season, but I didn't think he was at
he's pretty good.
a
Donovan
great
Mitchell's
level of
pretty
passing.
good.
That's a
Yeah.
great, and he's much better. I mean, he's undersized too, but he's better defensively. Like they're the same
Oh,
height.
yeah.
I looked it
Well,
up. They're
he's a dog. Donovan
yeah,
Mitchell's a dog. Like, yeah.
they're the same height. Both of them. They're also the same height as me. That's why I'm kind of interested in it. Just trying to see where I stack up on the muscle scale. Definitely lower. But he's like 30 pounds, 35 pounds heavier than Trae Young. Same height, just muscle.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, that's
That's
But
basically it.
beyond that, like we those first two Jazz games, even seen later on, it's like it's wow. I don't know. I like Donovan Mitchell. Actually wait. I will say though, because Trae Young is younger, and you're assuming you would have him. Let's say you're just trying to have a guy you'd have for your whole career, right? I mean, Trae Young is quite, he's I think 3 years
Younger,
younger,
2 years younger.
two
Not by
years,
much, but
not too much, I guess. But I don't know. That's a tough one.
that is a tough one.
But I think Trae Young has earned his roses. I think he's properly rated.
Okay.
I you know, let's see. I don't want to jump over. I don't want to what's it called? Overreact as we are prone to do. Don't want to react too much to this guy. Let's see. Let's see if he gets to the finals. Then that's a different conversation.
There you
Oh
go.
my God, that's a different conversation. But if he doesn't get to the finals, we'll see. This might, who knows what. Should we move on, man? We've gone on for a bit.
Yeah, let's move on. But yeah, this was quite a series.
Yeah. I definitely am gonna be too. This is popcorn just for this is now. This might do you want to say it? I'm gonna say it. Might be popcorn series now. Just because of drama. Just because
Yeah.
of drama. Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the popcorn game will be Game 7 of the Milwaukee Brooklyn. The Nets.
Oh yeah.
The Bucks Nets, because there's a Game 7. But I think the series, only because I guess there's two more games if the Sixers. Anyways, I think the Eastern Conference got really interesting.
It did.
Like all of a sudden,
Absolutely.
and I guess we should talk about that. So first, we're recording this after Game 6, but I think we have to start talking about Game 5 because, I mean,
Oh my God.
we were talking about like what would happen. We kind of lambasted Milwaukee. We kind of crapped on them, and we're like, if they do, if they blow this, or if they allow the Nets to win this series, then Jesus Christ, Budenholzer get fired. Kind of all this, charged up against the Bucks if they blow this up, and you're like, well, you need KD to score 2 50-point games, and damn it, he got to one of them because that was unbelievable. I'm gonna let you talk first, man.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. It's if you want to win this game, KD has to damn near drop 50 points, and he dropped 49. I mean, that's basically a 50-point game. It's exactly what you're looking for. And lights out, absolutely insane. I just looking at him put on probably one of the best performances, one of the most memorable performances in recent NBA memory. He played every minute of that game in Game 5. Just like absolutely tried his absolute most and best in terms of just trying to carry this team and trying to, just grind out that win. I felt that, Harden, he definitely on the court, he was more of a decoy most of the time because like I feel like it wasn't that he wasn't that like the most effective guy on the court as well. But just looking at that game though, right? At the end of game 5, I just felt like Milwaukee had a really good chance to go up actually. And I was like, well, this is their chance. And they had the ball, time was running down, and I believe Middleton passed it to Giannis, and Giannis just you know fumbled around the ball and then lost it, and then the Nets recovered it, and it's like game over. And I'm like, wow. So what's up with Giannis now? Giannis has been, kind of struggling at end of games, and I don't know what to say. I mean, I feel like he is a super raw. He is all deserving of his MVPs, all of his accolades, his praise, but the man at the end of games, especially this series, he's been exposed pretty hard, and you know, it comes down to every second, every basket, every play, and when you don't execute on those, especially at the critical ones at the end, it really comes back to bite you. And you know, as of Game 5, they were down 3-2, but Game 6 obviously happened. So we'll talk that later.
Yeah. I think part of that sequence was it's not as bad as Simmons. I'm not going to go on. I think Giannis is immune of that,
of course, yeah,
of course. But there is a sense of he's not that great from the free throw line. It's been that Nets crowd was probably going to be chanting the count and everything, and that crowd. I gotta say, we were talking about who has more fans, Clippers or Nets. That Nets crowd in Game 5, jeez, they showed up. So I guess that answers our question.
Yeah,
They have more fans. So wow, that was a good crowd. I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised.
That crowd was
good job, Brooklyn.
Yeah, really good.
Good job, Brooklyn. But I think in the end of games, there's kind of a worry that people are, if let's say they're down, team is going to immediately foul him. So, I mean, also when you look at, let's say Game 3, when I was end of game, he was like chucking up. I think in Game 5 too, he was like chucking jump shots or chucking threes, and when he should be driving. But I think the reason he was afraid of driving is because he'd have to be sent to a free throw line, and he was worried about that. Now he's not as bad as Simmons, of course. So like, I don't think he should still have confidence and drive for it. I think he'll make one of two. Like I feel like at least he shouldn't be too worried. But yeah, I think that's what's happening. It's just a crisis of confidence. It feels like near the end of the games. I guess I gotta get to get my KD sense in. It was just phenomenal. It's why KD was. I think we might have other players like him with the way the NBA is shaping, but he's almost 7 foot tall, and he graces across the court like a point guard. And those two skills, and combined with the fact that he can shoot, like, just makes him deadly. Like, you can put a hand in his face, and because he is that much taller, he is so tall, it'll work. It'll mostly work unless you put Giannis on him, which why don't the Bucks do? Why don't the Bucks put Giannis on him? Like, honestly,
why? Yeah,
they put Middleton. They keep putting Middleton or Tucker, and Tucker did fine in Game 3. But tell me, why don't you put Giannis, like previous defensive player of the year, first team all NBA defensive player? Why? Why don't you put him?
100%.
And so regardless, just watching him, the way hands in his face, and he just makes these shots go in. His field goal percentages are incredibly high. And that's he might not go off like Tatum's we talk about Tatum's has gone for 50 and 60 many times, but there's just something different. It feels like when KD is doing it because of how efficient he is. He is so damn efficient on how he does it, which makes it more impressive in a way. And Jeff Green stepped up, tips off to Jeff Green. And the funny story about this game is, so I was watching the first part of it. It was great. It was great in the sense Milwaukee was up. I was like, okay, they're kind of figuring this out. KD was playing well. I went for a run, and I came back, and I'm like, how did the Nets get back in this? And then I saw KD in that fourth quarter, and that was something else in that fourth quarter. That was just a sight to behold. Wow, it was. I could keep I gotta start saying things, man. I guess James Harden was definitely a decoy, but it worked. For some reason, it worked. I don't know why the Bucks couldn't have offensively just gone after James Harden. Like Giannis, again, there was a point where it was Giannis up against James Harden, and then he just settled for like a post jumper instead of trying to drive. And Harden's not going to be able to defend you with that how he was looking. It was just odd. And of course, of course we can talk about how the Bucks kind of blew it and how it's a combination of both. Obviously, that the Bucks kind of blew it, and you're thinking coaching adjustments. Why isn't Budenholzer convincing? Because Game 4, like Giannis was driving and like being a dunker in Game 4. We're talking about like why can he do that more in Game 5? And he just bottled in the pressure. It felt like, and then that the end of clock offense for that team is just rough. You'd think Drew Holiday would be better on offense in clutch situations. He's not been that great offensively. He's been great defensively, but not offensively. You just have to rely on Middleton contested jumpers, which is not where you want to be because contested. I mean, Middleton ain't Kevin Durant. We like Middleton. You really like Middleton. He ain't Kevin Durant though. We can admit on that. And
no Kevin Durant, nowhere close. I would say just like one quick point, just that players that have a fear or just like I guess like even any kind of like hesitancy towards going to the free throw line and actually getting your points there. That's, we've seen that hurts teams so much in these playoffs, especially this year. But you're just looking at, Giannis this series, Luka, right, in the Mavs Clippers series, Embiid against the Hawks for some reason. I guess like his shooting maybe got a little bit, worse at the end, but it's just like a lot of players that, if you're relying on them like for all the first three quarters, but then in the fourth quarter when it becomes crunch time and you're like suddenly adverse towards getting to the free throw line. And in Giannis's case, I feel like he just doesn't want to go to the free throw line, period, because I guess he's just not like that good. It just becomes so tough. I mean, he is your best player. You can't like take him out of the game. I mean, just like you got to ride with him. And so, yeah, it's just it's kind of a tough break, but I mean, he should still go for it. Honestly, he's good enough to make 1 or 2, and I think that's what counts in a day. It's better than 0. So,
do you want to head over to Game 6? Anything else you want to talk about?
Sure.
So, Game 6. Full disclosure, I went to a sports bar area. I was doing trivia night with some friends, and I thought I went along, and I thought there'd be the game on TVs. They had ESPN2, they had the NHL Network, they had NBA TV. They had no ESPN on. Was not able to watch this game, but I'll just let you talk then. I'll let you talk first, man, because straight up, I wasn't able to watch this game.
So I mean, in terms of just like looking at how things played out, honestly, KD, he tried to do his heroics again. He also played a lot of minutes this game. He played 40 minutes. Still provided a solid number of points as always. But I feel like, he kind of did run out of gas too. He was tired. I mean, come on. Like, it's just like after going 48 minutes all out in game 5, you gotta kind of give him a little slack for that. But I feel like the rest of the Nets also didn't really step up as much as I'd hoped so. Looking at Harden again, like, he's like maybe a little bit better this game, I'd say, evaluation wise. But again, in Harden's case, you'd be looking at, much bigger games from him. You'd be expecting that. But let's remember that basically he hasn't done basketball activities prior to actually playing the freaking NBA playoff game. He was just, I'm going to try out, shoot around or like pregame warmups, see how my hamstring's doing. And it's like a, nagging, like long-term delicate kind of thing. And so I give kudos to him for even, coming out on the court and trying it out. I mean, this is definitely like, something that, if you aggravate again, it could become much worse, but he's doing what he can, and he's like invested in his team to try to do as best as he can. So good for him there. But, I think the bigger story is really on the other side tonight. And, as you alluded to earlier, this game was not won by Giannis. It was not won by, anyone else on Milwaukee Bucks, but one individual player. Chris Middleton absolutely played like a star, and nothing short of it. Absolutely did amazing tonight. 38 points, 10 rebounds, 5 steals, 5 assists, just a complete line. Unbelievable game. He was just you have one of these games, like it's like I just remember it's like Chris Middleton, the always reliable role player, but once in a while you always get this one spark. He's like, yeah, man, he goes off, and tonight was that night. And I was looking at their the game, and it was like, yeah, it was relatively close, and Brooklyn got kind of close in the beginning of the third quarter, but then Milwaukee just pulled away. And that's what Chris Middleton did. He just poured into points. Of course, Giannis, he was always solid, of course, and 17 rebounds, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's awesome. So complete team effort. They really held it down at home. I think it was a good game from them. I mean, the Nets didn't show up as well as you'd expect them to, but you could give some credit to Bucks to that too. But I'm looking forward to Game 7. I think that's where it's not going to be a popcorn game. It's going to be a fireworks game. I'm calling that fireworks game.
So we should add a little spice on that popcorn, make it some fireworks. Add some spice to that popcorn.
There you go. It's like the crackling popcorn in your mouth. You got the fireworks.
I was able to watch snippets before the game was kind of over before right before the benches started to empty out, and they played the bench players at the end. Able to see Katie's going off still, and of course, like you're talking about Middleton going off, and it's back and forth like this, and it felt like Brooklyn was closing in, and then all of a sudden, like you said, Milwaukee just blew it open, and back to it again. And if they could do that, if they can, I guess if they don't have to rely on a crowd so much, and this can transcend, this can be thinking the words, man. This is gonna be translated or transferred, whatever, some trans word. If it can be transferred to
Game
Brooklyn,
7,
Game 7, Brooklyn. Then because when Middleton and Giannis and even Holiday are playing like this.
Yeah, he played well too. Yes, of course.
If the three of them are playing like this, this is the big three that I guess we shouldn't say big three, but if the three best players, this trio, if they're playing like this is how the two of us expected them to play, and why we thought they would beat the Nets. If they actually play like this in Brooklyn, then KD could still score 50, but at some point, James Harden would also have to score quite a bit, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do that. If he is, then the lore of Harden will be rewritten and all of that. I'll have to apologize because Harden's also another player I'm kind of, I'm relatively low on compared to others. So I'll have to issue an apology to him if that happens. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely, because it's just weird how Milwaukee will be at home, like games 4 and game 6. You'll see lines like this, and you think, wow, they haven't figured out. I mean, we recorded after game 4, and I was saying, yeah, with Kyrie out now, you have to finish the job.
Yeah.
And then it goes to Brooklyn. And it's like a completely different ball game, a completely different story. I mean,
Yeah.
remember game 2? You're like, what the hell is going on in game 2? Even game 1, but game 2, I was like floored. Like, what is going on?
Right.
It's just no Harden, and these guys can't adjust, and they just look bad. So I guess the crowds are that important to them. So that's interesting. So
I mean, or just like sleeping at your own bed at home, maybe just having a good night's sleep. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe those pillows in the hotel ain't adding up. Maybe they got some bed bugs in there.
There you
Who
go.
knows? No. And then Katie's probably sleeping in like a, he's got it set up. He's a superstar basketball player. We know the life.
There you go.
Yeah. So do you have any predictions for Game 7? Do you want to be so bold to pick a winner?
Okay. So let's assume this. First of all, let me assume that Kyrie is probably still going to be out. Because I think you can like say for, they want to move heaven and earth. I don't think the Nets want to, have this become anything worse. And so I think Kyrie won't play Game 7. That being said, I'm looking at the assessments and everything, and this prediction is like, I really don't like either side. Like I don't have a strong lean towards either side. Milwaukee Game 6, they look good. But I've been disappointed with this team, like just, throughout the series. I expected much better from them. And Brooklyn, they played well, but they're down. Like they're like up to like 1.5 stars because James Harden's literally picking his spots. He's half of what he is, basically. So I guess the big question is, what can James Harden do in Game 7? And, honestly, I can't see anything more than what he did in this game. So looking at that, it's all dependent on, does Katie drop another 50? And wow. Honestly, I would say Milwaukee wins in a close game in Brooklyn because I think this time around in Game 5, their role players, I think Middleton, I think Holiday, they really didn't show up in some ways. They didn't play that well. I think with this, Game 6 kind of momentum, with this confidence, with this like do or die kind of situation, I think they'll be in the zone. They'll be locked in. And if they even play average or half like decent, Milwaukee will have like that much more help in terms of like scoring points. And I think it'll still be a close game because they aren't the greatest closing team in the NBA, but I just think ultimately Brooklyn's just down too many guys. It's just so difficult at this point. So choosing Milwaukee in a close one, Game 7.
I will agree. I think that's what on paper and what my head says, that Milwaukee
But
will win
again,
it.
it's not a very confident prediction at all.
But my gut is like, something is up. There is something. There's something up with Brooklyn. I mean, there's something up in that arena. Like, did I don't know. There's some juju
out there.
The water's different. I don't know. It's just like, you look at games 4 and game 6, and you're like, all right, okay, and then nope. It's like, what? What? So that's my read on it. Is my head, and on paper, I think Milwaukee will win as well. It's just, I mean, I think, again, this could be silly. This is like Charles Barkley betting, of course. Whatever we say, just it'll go the opposite. It is what it is. that's how life rolls sometimes. But so maybe KD goes back and says, "Why you were lauding me? You were lauding me, talking about how this is one of the best games we've seen, in recently, and how it's amazing playing 48 minutes. You call me one of the best two-way players right now, and all that jazz. And yet you're not going to trust me in a game 7? What?
The guy dropped 60. Just
You
watch.
got, yeah, exactly. That's what I think. I there's like a 30% chance or like a 40% chance that he goes ballistic again. Like I genuinely believe it.
I think it's better than 50-50, but I mean, like, it's gonna be like kind of tough. But I mean, yeah.
I mean, if Milwaukee plays, I mean, just looking at the box score, if Milwaukee plays the way they played in Game 6, then even a 60-point KD game, actually no, a 60-point KD game would still beat them no matter what. But if let's say it's not, if if you get to 50 points, and Milwaukee plays that level or even better, they could still pull it off, I guess, because it felt like they played better than they did in Game 5 as a team.
That's
so
fair.
they only lost by 6 points in Game 5, and that was foul shooting, free throws at the end and all that. So then you just transfer. This is weird logic, but you just transfer Game 6, Bucks, and Game 5 Nets. You would think Game 6 Bucks wins, but we'll see.
Right. All right.
I don't know. I'm just worried about the KD, man. I'm worried about him. He's just gonna
Slim Reaper,
drop 50, drop 60.
Hey.
Yeah. All right, and I think the last series. I want to talk about Chris Paul later on, but the last series we got to talk about is our appointed popcorn series, Clippers Jazz, and
it hasn't been bad. It's lived up to its hype, honestly.
Oh yeah, it definitely has. It's been good. It's been fun to watch. I just like watching them, and I watch the uniform matchups and everything. I don't know. I just like watching the games in Utah. I just like watching that crowd being color coordinated. It's just fun. The colors and everything. I will issue an apology to Paul George. It's like, where are the Paul George haters? Well, I was here. Hi.
I'm still here.
He's not going to fall. I'm apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I believed the Utah fans in their assessment that you were overrated. Clearly you're not, Mr. George, because these past 3 games have told me otherwise. We wrote you off, and your team, the Clippers, off for dead. And clearly, Mr. George, you stepped up, showed them what's up, even though they shot an insane amount from threes in the first half. Still in it, still in it, and with that incredible performance, there was still a close game in the first half. It tells you all you need to know. That you pulled it out, and also credit to Ty Lue. He's done a great job. I feel like he's officially adopted this small ball lineup, and it's working. It definitely had Terrence Mann dunk on Gobert. That's gotta hurt. That's gotta hurt the morale of the Jazz a little bit. Like, I don't want to overreact to one dunk, but like, that's a defensive player of the year. Kendrick Perkins can go on these rants and other pundits about he's got to play better defensively, defensive player of the year. Blah, blah. There's a reason I said Simmons is defense player of the year. Point is, that dunk, although there might not be, I shouldn't be overreacting. That dunk probably hit a little bit of in a little bit with the Jazz, and just reading the body language of these guys. It's not as we're in danger as the Sixers are. The Sixers feel like the world is falling. They're in a burning room, but they can't get out. That's the vibe we get for the Sixers. But from the Jazz, it's a little more confident than that. But I think the fact that Kawhi ain't there and Paul George played really well, great. We'd be talking about it if I feel like we'd be really, really talking about it if that KD game didn't happen, which of course, rightfully so, we would talk about more.
Yeah.
So that was a great game from him, and just I don't know, that Terrence Mann dunk. That the fact that this small ball lineup is really working and it's taking advantage of them. It's at some point, if the shots don't sink, it sucks. Even for how good Utah is defensively, I mean, Quinn Snyder's it's built 3-and-D. Like I said, the epitome of a 3-and-D team. Utah is the way they're deploying small ball and just constantly switching and just if you can't defend that, then oh my god, kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So it goes back to LA. We'll see what happens. I would say I genuinely don't know. 50-50. I want the Jazz to win because I don't know why. I want the Jazz to win, but part of me thinks the Clippers have figured this out.
Yeah, I fear they have. And for me, I root against the Clippers because one, I'm a Lakers fan, and two, the Clippers have never made the Western Conference Finals in the history of their franchise. And I would love to see that streak continue. I've said that many times on this podcast, but I just need to remind everyone again. But no, I mean, looking at the Clippers playing Game 5, that was scary. Paul George played good. I'm not going to lie about that. But then again, part of me says Paul George also got about 30 points by the end of 3 quarters. So good for him 3 quarters through. 4th quarter, game got tight. Guy only scored around 7 points at most in the 4th quarter. And so it's like, yeah, okay, maybe it's him, maybe he doesn't need to become the guy that takes over. But then again, I would have expected him to maybe get a few more points than 7 points.
That's a valid complaint.
In the former, that's how the Clippers won. They had no Kawhi. They had a Paul George that played well. But the biggest story is how good and how deep the Clippers lineup is. And it's just unbelievable. Those guys are just so good. I think when you think about why LA was a really attractive destination for Kawhi and ultimately Paul George, even though they traded away all the future picks, their most promising young player, they still had such a deep roster, and they just added through trades, through buyout market, so many more players. Just looking at the stats, Reggie Jackson, this entire series, he's proven himself to be a killer. Just a thorn on your side, an absolute killer. He doesn't give a crud about who's defending you, who's in his face. He's going to shoot. He's going to bring this team back from the dead. Marcus Morris Sr. Guys totally went off this game. 25 points, 10 of 16 shooting. Just he was incredible. And you're looking at these guys like, wow. When you have one role player, show up, that's basically usually it's okay, that's what you need to win a game. But in terms of when their star players out, most of them showed up this game. Even Terrence Mann, right? Ty Lue figured out that Terrence Mann is a guy that we need in our small ball lineup, and he is someone that would help us a lot. And he did. He definitely did. That notwithstanding that poster dunk from Gobert, which was awesome. He was just a great presence the whole night. So I think that really hurts Utah because one, I personally believe that playing Salt Lake City is one of the bigger home court advantages they can have in the entire NBA. I ranked that up there with Denver. I ranked that up there with I guess in a packed house, maybe a Staples Center, but I feel even more so
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden or
TD Garden, yeah.
TD Garden. I feel TD Garden or Madison Square would be better, or Portland DeRose Garden, because there's smaller courts and the fans feel like they're on top of you. So it's a really, really intense environment. Utah is kind of like that. It's a smaller court, high elevation. You kind of have to travel out there a little bit, so it's not the easiest place to get to. And, to lose this game, and not to be honest, Utah didn't shoot that bad from three either. I heard, one pundit said they had one of the best shooting 3-point nights they've had this season. They had a really good night shooting wise. It's just that, Donovan Mitchell didn't go crazy. He did solid. He didn't go crazy. And they didn't win. They just lost to the Clippers, like without a Kawhi Leonard at home in the game 5. And personally, I think that really hurts them. Game 6, I really, really think Donovan Mitchell has to go off for like 40 for them to have a chance to even the series. Because right now, I am pretty confident, hurts to say, Clippers are probably going to win that game in LA.
And the Jazz had a great shooting night in the first half. Like it averaged out to where it became about average because the second half, statistics, it just became average. It became 37%. But in the first half, it was crazy. And the Clippers were still in it. And you're like, oh my God, what? How are they still in it? How, the amount of threes that they hit was crazy. And they were still in it. And what you said, it's Reggie Jackson. It's crazy how
I don't know. This guy is just
he's been great this series. I mean, when you think about game 2, even when they came back, it was Reggie Jackson was the fire that sparked it.
Yeah, for sure.
The catalyst. Like he's been a great guy. He's a starter, but he's been a great, I guess, role player. He's been excellent. And
playing like star. He's been playing like borderline star this series, honestly.
Yeah, and then Marcus Morris, I've seen like he just it's crazy. Yeah, I can list names, but that's all. At the very beginning of the year, before the playoffs started to roll in. I shouldn't say very beginning, but at about halfway after All-Star break, but halfway, before a playoff grind was getting in and before the Clippers started tanking at the end for playoff seeding, whatever. I mean, you were quite confident. I mean, before we started this, maybe it was while the early infancy of this podcast, you were confident the Clippers would be the team the team to beat. They would be the team to win the finals, and they would be the team to beat because of how dangerous their role players are. Because I mean, the amount of talent. I mean, of course, when you have the two great two-way players and or I guess one great and one good two-way player and Kawhi and Paul George just catering to you. Two great. Damn it! I apologies to Mr. George. So I gotta say, two great two-way players in those guys, those wings,
right.
And then on top of the three. The 3-point machines that the rest of that team has, like Reggie Jackson, Morris, and Kennard, and and beyond that, like the way man has been playing defensively, like trading out Lou Will for Rondo is, although Rondo's not playing many minutes, it's just a different mentality because like Lou Will in the playoffs was not it. No. So I think that whole thing we're talking about, I'm like, yep. We're thinking with the Clippers, and then we kind of fell off. We're thinking the Lakers might have a better shot for the West. We're thinking the Sixers or Bucks and all that. Sixers, Bucks, Nets, all that. The teams that are kind of heralded that way, and it feels like the Clippers, in a way, are kind of under the radar just because they're not the new hot thing, right? The Nets are the new hot thing, or the way the Sixers are playing, and the Lakers were defending champions, and then the Clippers, it was like, they choked. We don't really trust them to do it again. And I don't know. There's a reason at the very beginning of the series, I was like, I kind of buy with the Sixers, not Sixers. Jeez, I buy the Clippers winning this series against the Jazz. And it was just, I saw the way they adjusted against the Mavericks. That game 7 was scary good, how their role players played. And I thought they figured something out. Clearly it took 2 games for them to assess and judge how to beat this team. And they've been doing a great job at it, I think. And I mean, I guess again, it's like my head and on paper, Clippers should win this in Game 6, but my gut is telling me something's going to happen. My gut's telling me Donovan Mitchell might have something else in him.
Well,
I just like Donovan.
My heart's telling me Donovan Mitchell's going to do something because, I mean, I've always predicted, not predicted, but I always knew and respected what the Clippers had. And I never overlooked that. Just, I just don't like the Clippers. I always wanted them to lose. And that's why I never picked them. But, to be real, they are a very good team. And you have to recognize that. And, if you really think about it, if they win on Friday night, that is 4 games won in a row after Utah started out with that 2-0 lead. And that's just, momentum shifting. They have all the momentum right now. And so, it might just happen. We'll see.
Kawhi, there's a stat that Kawhi hasn't lost a series where he's been down 0-2.
I want him to lose.
Well, I guess Kawhi's not. Oh, well, Kawhi he played for 2 games, so I mean, yeah. Playing. Well, if we think the Clippers win this series, if you want anything to add, I'm going to pivot.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and pivot.
So if we think the Clippers win this series, right, then they're going to face in the Western Conference Finals against a Chris Paul-less, it feels at the moment, Chris Paul-less Suns.
Yeah.
You have no Kawhi on one side. You have no Chris Paul on the other side. And they have that matchup. I'm just big Chris Paul fan over here, right? And Chris Paul going out with the what is it? Being positive for COVID, even though he was vaccinated, it seems that kind of scares me a little bit now. That's a different matter. How this is a new variant? Oh my gosh. Well, he feels like he's doing fine and everything. It's not symptomatic and stuff like that. But
right.
If he's out for a long period of time, I have faith in the Suns, but I'm not quite sure. What is your read on the Suns without Chris Paul possibly?
Oh, I think it's a huge blow to them, honestly. I think when you're out on health and safety protocols, the biggest problem is that, Chris Paul essentially is now away, totally away from team. He can't practice, what was it? It was reported 2 or 3 days ago. So he hasn't practiced from that day until all the way, through maybe how many games they're playing in the Western Conference Finals. He can't practice. He can't play in a game. He can't interact with any of the players. He can't go to any of the meetings. He can't look at talk to any of the coaches, maybe virtually. But I mean, it just absolutely impacts every single facet of the game. And, Chris Paul, as they say, he's the heart and soul of the Phoenix Suns. And to not have your leader in any capacity for that long of a time, to not have him in practice, not to prepare, he's not by you preparing to watch film and all that, that hurts so much, honestly. I think that it's like Devin Booker at that point becomes, a la maybe KD Nets, kind of like KD only Nets situation, or a Jason Tatum only Celtics situation. He's kind of thrown into that role. And, again, as with these guys, you always expect one game you'd probably give to them because they are that good. But ultimately, it is a ship that's about to sink. I mean, you don't have your leader. It just becomes so much more difficult to win. And with the Clippers, I would expect Kawhi to maybe play one game or something like that. I mean, he said it's a tweaked knee, and I don't know. I think Kawhi in some ways he is the guy that his knees they're always extra cautious with his knees, so that's why they didn't want to play him, some of these games, and they wanted just to see if they could rest it a little bit longer. But I don't think it's crazy serious. If it was something really serious, then it would have been reported as much. So he would probably still play in some ways, in some capacity, and even if he doesn't, the Clippers role players are just kind of scary to say that. As good as the Suns role players are, Clippers role player is just something else. They're just something else.
So if you believe that, if you think and if that Kawhi is actually going to be playing some of these games, then yeah, if you have no Chris Paul, you're screwed. It's Kawhi and Paul George and the role players, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It sucks.
That being said, if you guys watched last week's segment about it was not last week's segment, it was Monday night pod, and it was released on Tuesday, about golf and how I had one of my predictions was John Rahm, and I said 2 weeks ago he had a positive COVID test, went to isolation, but after about a week or so he came out and he was totally fine. So Chris Paul was placed into health and safety protocols about 2 days ago. Two days ago, I think, something like that, somewhere around there now. So if he is placed in health and safety protocols 2 days ago, and say the Clippers, it goes to game 7 for that series, or even if the Clippers win in game 6, they still have a few days off before they start playing the Suns. I really think if Chris Paul is asymptomatic, and in many cases I think he is, that's just belief in myself, but I'm just saying I think he's going to be back relatively quicker than most people would fear. Like people like fearing like, oh, he's going to be out the entire series. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, worst case, maybe like 3 games, but I feel like for me, honestly, it's like if he's out game 1, maybe game 2, that's about the extent of it. But yeah, that's what I'm expecting in terms of like Chris Paul's absence.
All right, if you say so, man. I'm still trying to get a read on this this whole Chris Paul situation.
I don't have concrete data, so I don't know.
It's also kind of odd how like it seems he was. Hopefully, I'm not like this ain't fake news, but like if he was vaccinated and he got COVID, and so that's something.
Again. Yeah, jeez.
It's possible that was. Yeah, so it says reportedly vaccinated. So that's, I don't know. Now I think this gets me scared a little bit more, but he's not hospitalized, he's not symptomatic, so I guess that's the good news for the rest of us too. Anyways, that's the whole point of these vaccines, is it's not like you might still get it, but just don't die. It's the whole point of vaccines. We going on the tangents and this stuff, man. But so I'm still trying to gauge how long it will take. It's just if it's, but I think at some point though, so let's say it's 2 games.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say Kawhi Leonard comes back game 2. So if we think the Clippers beat the Suns in game 1, and then Kawhi comes back in game 2, then Chris Paul, they're down 0-2, and they're having to play away their first game, the next 2 games. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's just, sure. I think no matter how you slice it, it's just going to be an uphill battle. And that just sucks because, man, the way we were talking about how the Suns could be the favorites. We're the favorites out of the West, we thought. The way they were playing, the way they beat the Nuggets, we might say that their competition and the teams they have to play weren't as rigorous, like AD-less Lakers that, that those 4 or 5, those last few games were kind of, rough. And then the Nuggets team that isn't that great. Jokic can only carry so much, right? And then versus like what the Clippers have to do. But we thought that the way the Suns were playing, they would be the favorites coming out of the West. And
right.
Man, the injuries, it's crazy how injuries have just written this whole the whole playoffs this year.
So many curveballs. Just insane.
Like if you go team by team, you got Mike Conley. I guess for a bit, Donovan Mitchell. We got Mike Conley for Utah. Then you got Chris Paul now for
Phoenix. Yeah.
Phoenix, and you got, Jamal Murray and Barton was out for a bit and all that Nuggets. I go down and down and down. And there will be, I'm pretty sure every team, not mistaken, every team will have one player that or
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
have one or two players that are like key to the rotations that are just wiped out, like key
Right.
players
Sure.
due to injury. It just sucks. It's crazy. I know this might be deviating a little bit, but might as well talk about it. I know Adam Silver. It was like the middle of the season. It was after Jamal Murray tore his ACL, and there was like a lot of about how this season is shortened and they're cramming a lot of more games in, not a lot of rest, a lot more back to backs. And Adam Silver released a report and it showed that the injury rate hadn't actually increased anything. It wasn't like players were getting injured at a higher rate than usual. Which I don't. I mean, I guess I guess I don't know how I really feel about it. I'm not sure because
Yeah.
it doesn't really seem to make too much sense to me. I guess it's possible that whatever rationale I'm putting up in my head right now, whether it's well, let's say you have back to backs, then more star players will less games, but because there's less, more star players would rest more, let's say. But then because there's only 72 instead of 82 games, then the star players still have to play more, right? It's not like you can get as many rest days or load management days, even if it might be rightfully so to get some load management days with this many back-to-backs. That's one reason. And then, on top of that, you might think, well, the starting rotation, right? They have to play consistently. You might be able to take some days off or something, or have like the benches play a lot, but then if the stars have to play immediately the next game, you're still logging on minutes with not much rest. So it's not like you can have one game where the bench kind of takes over, like you just rest early in the middle in the games, because even if you rest early, it's you get the next game right after. So it just feels like anything I'm looking forward to. Numbers don't lie, that report, but it just feels we're seeing this. This is a crazy amount of injuries that have happened in this season. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And it sucks because you get to a point where because NBA compared to, let's say, the NFL or other leagues, the basketball is so much more of there's shorter rotations and the star players matter so much more, right? Each individual player matters so much more. If injuries like this happen, you end up thinking the best team isn't going to win it. That's like the fear that you have, is that well, the best team really doesn't win the finals, and then that seeps into how much does it hurt the NBA that you're having this many injuries, and that you might get a champion, and you might argue that whoever is able to win it, it might not be because their stars were intact, but they had the best role players that could step up, and that's a great championship team that's able to coach and all of that. But I think like it's clear that the Lakers are better with AD than without AD, right? I mean, there's like teams like that where if they have like that surplus, they're gonna maybe win it all, and because of these injuries, it's just you're gonna have that seed of doubt that it's not the case. And I don't know how this might hurt the NBA a little bit, just from a viewership standpoint, and later on. If this supposedly is not an abnormally high injury rate, that means that this can happen again if this isn't abnormally high. If that's the case, then like what's stopping from next year something similar happening in the playoffs?
Right.
And then that's just a sucky thing for the NBA in the future. So that's a little aside, a little road. I guess the old what is it? The road less traveled that I went on there, but just thought with all these injuries and all that's happening with Chris Paul and Kawhi, it just sucked. We found out it was Wednesday, right? We found out yesterday. All this news came on Wednesday about all these coaches firings and Chris Paul and Kawhi, and then later on the actual games itself were like remarkable. So
unbelievable. Yeah.
All right, I think anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to get off your chest? Anything else you want to talk about with these games?
I think that's it with the games. Honestly, just come down to the wire here. Last few pivotal games for all these series, and tune in and watch these guys. I think all of them are going to be really good. When you get to game 6 or game 7, you're usually pretty good. So, um, you know, definitely tune in, watch these series. It could go anywhere, honestly, for most of them. So, yeah, I'll be watching for sure with my popcorn.
Yeah, I'm getting man. There's all of these became popcorn series, and then there's a firecracker popcorn involved too. Man, we're loading up on those carbs, man.
There you
I mean,
go.
popcorn is a relatively healthy snack if you don't put butter
There
on
you
it
go.
and stuff. So,
Right.
but yeah, no,
Yeah.
you get a healthy snack instead of those desserts or something like that. All right, so we back